Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This week, we have an app developer who created an app that pairs screen time and chores. So imagine that. You can connect how much screen time your kids get by if they've done their chores or not. This app is coming out here this summer. So I wanted to bring the developer on and talk about how this is going to, this integration, this app, how it's going to be able to change how you manage screen time in your kids. Imagine coming home each day from work and having all the work done around the house, and the kids are incentivized to do it. That's what this app does. And yes, there is an app for that. So if that interests you, keep listening on. Lots of great information in this one. Hello, and welcome to Outer Spaces, a podcast dedicated to empowering designers and contractors in the outdoor living space. Through this show, I hope to create a powerful resource for you, someone who is trying to grow their company but might not have all the tools and processes to do so. On Outer Spaces, we're passionate about breaking the chains of small mindsets and helping contractors just like you take control of their businesses and their lives. My name is Joshua Gillow, and through my 25 years of dirt under the nails experience, I look forward to sharing tips, strategies, and other contractor success stories here on the Outer Spaces podcast. Now, let's get on with the show. Hello, and welcome back to the Outer Spaces podcast. This is your host, Joshua Gillow. Today's guest is the founder of Choreo. It's an innovative Apple iOS app that revolutionizes the way chores and screen time are interconnected. With over 20 years of experience as a dedicated husband and father to 3 teenagers, our founder combines a deep understanding of family dynamics and a rich corporate background in technology, finance, and even real estate entrepreneurial projects. He has broken the glass ceiling of bringing one of his app ideas to life, and today we're going to learn all about it. Jeff Houston, welcome to the show.
Hey, Joshua, thanks for having me. I love what you're doing with Outer Spaces and just super excited to be here today.
Awesome, man. It's been a pleasure. Listeners, the reason why I'm bringing Jeff on the show is we're part of a tribe, we're part of a brotherhood from Undisputed Mastery, and what's amazing to me is how men come into this group and come out different, and how they come out and they take some of the ideas that they had maybe thought about for years and years and years and never put into fruition. All of a sudden they start bringing that shit to life. And Jeff is an excellent example of that, of taking an idea that he had, something that he needed for his own family, and bringing it to the world so he can share that experience with everybody. So Jeff, before we get into the app and how it's going to change how you work with kids and screen time, since that's a big thing in my house, I have a 13 and 15-year-old, and that's been a very interesting conversation throughout. I didn't grow up, I'm 44 years old. I didn't grow up with phones. So that was never a thing. And now it is. So for parents out there that are struggling with their kids and screen time, this might be the answer for you. So Jeff, take us into where you come from, how you got to this point of creating an app that'll help us with chores and screen time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in the Atari Commodore 64 time frame too. So you'd really have to go somewhere to use devices. But so I grew up in the Chicago region and moved to Austin, Texas about 6 years ago. I really love Chicago, miss many things about it. A few things I don't miss are the weather and the taxes. Besides that, I still love Chicago and get back there regularly.
Nice. That's awesome, dude. And so originally from there, do you have any siblings?
I do. I have an older sister and a younger brother. They both have thriving families. My brother is a colonel in the Air Force.
Nice.
Super proud of him.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So, okay. So you kind of grow up in a family, and then now you have a family, right? You have I think you mentioned 3 teenagers. What problem did you run into that kind of prompted you to say, you know what, we need to create an app for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really didn't, set out to build a solution for this. I tried many other parental control apps, like many, I'm sure you've heard of, like Questudio, Bark, RPact. And one of my kids is I think a hacker. I think that's the only way to describe him. Tyler.
Smart, aren't they?
He is. Yeah, he's pretty talented with tech, but he found ways around to hack all of them. And I found too that these other parental control apps, you can really damage your phones too. And they don't really have the most important aspect, that they don't tie chores in. And really, besides that, I was really, my family really struggled with screen times and chores, and So I just wanted to make a solution for that for my family, and be able to bring that to the world and help other families too.
I love that. That's true. And, we went through the same thing with our kids because we're like, how do we parent? The first question was, when do they get a cell phone? Right. That was a big question for us. I never forget, my wife and I were taking a hike up a little area. We have a Camelback ski area here in Pennsylvania, and we were hiking up on the backside of that, and we were talking, and the kids were younger. I think my oldest was about 10 or 11 at the time. She's like, when is the right time to let kids have cell phones? And, it was first time for us. I don't know anybody kind of ask their parents, but we're looking, I said, 13 sounds about right. I'm like, I just pulled that out of the air. Like I had no clue. I'm just like, 13 sounds about right. But then the question is, all right, the world is a scary place, can be. There's a lot of nasty stuff out there. How do we protect our innocent children from this shit, right? How do we protect them from it? So we actually got our pact is what we used. And, at least we say, okay, we can monitor what they're seeing. We can say how much screen time they have and all that, but it doesn't tie to chores, which is why I wanted to have you on here, because that's kind of a cool sense. Is like, all right, so tell us how you go from, monitoring what they're watching or seeing or allowing them to see certain things. And then from there, screen time tied to chores. How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two real aspects to Chorio. The first is the parent's perspective. So parents can assign chores, and the kids are required to submit photo evidence that they've completed these chores, and the parent needs to approve them before they get their screen time. And that's the best part of it. So the kids do not get screen time until their chores are completed. And parents can set daily time limits and restrict time. So my daughter, for example, used to sleep with her phone by her head. And I'd go in and check on her. She might be asleep, but it'd be like blinking and beeping and lighting up. It's just kind of sad. Yeah. And then from the kids' perspective, they can track chores, take photos and submit them for approval. And they really learn screen time management skills, and that's how they're able to earn their screen time.
I love that because, social media especially is just a big old vacuum sucking your brain right in there, right? Especially the TikToks. I can't even have TikTok on my phone because when I had it on it for a little while, and it's like brain candy. It's incredible how fast you get sucked into it. And a half hour later, you're like, what am I doing? I learned nothing. I actually think I'm dumber now after doing that. So I had to take it off my phone because I know that I can be addictive that way. I kind of go into that. So, for kids that don't know that though, I'm in my 40s. So I can see that. I can see a pattern happening, but kids are just like, this must be what life is about, right? To be able to see and compare and the constant in their own mind competition that happens where comparing themselves to other people, to be able to throttle that in a way that you got to make them constructive first, right? Get your chores done. And then you get a little bit of time. So I just like the way that connects well. So what are some of the challenges you kind of came into this situation with or found along the journey that kind of made this a more interesting project for you?
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenge for me was my mindset. So I have had, good ideas for apps in the past, but was derailed by external forces. For example, in 08, 09, I had a great idea for a workout tracking app and, spent some time and money developing that. But then I was distracted by the financial crisis. I let that distract me. But however, this time around, I've cultivated kind of a rock solid mindset to stay committed no matter what. And there are a few reasons driving this. The first is that, this is a major problem for my family. Yeah. And just being able to solve it for my family is worth it. And I really have a desire to extend that out and help other families too, because other families struggle with screen time and chores as well. And then I think the last one that really helped, concrete, cement this in with my mindset is, I lost my parents a couple years ago to COVID, and really using that as a driver and motivator for me to honor them for all the time and love and money that they invested in me, for me to be able to bring something of massive value to the world to help other families, strengthen marriages, help kids' mentalities. I think those make this so it's going to happen no matter what for me.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. Wow, it must have been a tough time for sure. And to think that you've taken those tragedies and turned them into, power in a sense that they can live on forever. I love that.
Thank
So
you.
as you're going through this, I'm sure there's times you wanted to give up. I'm sure there's times things got crazy. How do you go into that why? How do you walk us through a process of where you're about to say I'm done, and then you can dig into that why? Because I tell people all the time, look, if once you understand why you're doing something and there's an emotional connection to why you're doing it, you will go through fire to get to the other side of that. There is no such thing as motivation at that point. There is an absolute guarantee it's going to be done. Might not happen exactly on your time frame, but there's nothing that's going to take your eye off that ball because your why is so strong. You'll go through anything to get there. You go to hell and back for it. So now that you are aware of that, how has that helped you throughout some of these struggles?
Yeah, absolutely. I like that phrase, storm the island and burn the boats. So there's no way out. Yeah, I think so. Some of the struggles I've had is, first kind of looking at it from a technology discovery perspective. There's kind of two worlds with mobile devices. There's the Google Android world and there's the iPhone, Apple iOS world. And, trying to figure out which one to use. I burn a lot of time, researching virtual private networks and mobile device management technology. And a neat thing about Apple iOS is that they opened up screen time API. So you don't need to use a virtual private network or a mobile device management to build this solution that I built. And that was, I think that was one of the challenges that, I just keep digging and not giving up because, everyone was telling me hey, no, you need a VPN and MDM for this. But I think that was one of the challenges before. And another one I think is, initially I engaged a developer that I found on Upwork. And, I spent a few $1,000s and a lot of time designing with him, and it just wasn't working right. And at that point, it's all right, I could have said, I gave it a whirl, didn't work, whatever, I'm moving on. But like you said, I'm not letting any setbacks stop me on this mission. So, I tripled down, engaged a very well-regarded development firm and doing it right.
That's awesome. And how has that changed from, because I know with ideas, you're all right, well, let's kind of test this. I found this guy on Upwork, and I work with guys on Upwork. I love those guys. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you try something and it fails. And you're maybe it wasn't meant to be. But it sounds like you said, okay, that's maybe one way is not going to work. Let's try another one, right? And then you found somebody else. So what was the mindset around going from I could quit right now to I got to find somebody that's probably going to cost me a lot more money, but there's no way this isn't coming to life? How did that shift for you?
Yeah, I think part of it was, just remembering, all of the regrets I had from abandoning that workout tracking app, from 2008 and 2009. And, thinking too about, on my deathbed, hopefully in, 50 plus years from now, I don't look back and regret man, I never brought one of my ideas to fruition. And, that's another major motivator and utilizing all of the gifts and talents that God has given me to, bring value to the world. I just kept going back to that and not wanting to experience that in the future.
So good. So good. You mentioned it. And I mention it often here on the podcast about, our main objective in life is to discover the gifts that God's given us. And the second is to share them with as many people as you possibly can. And you're doing it through an app, brother. So I love that. It's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. So you find, Upwork guy didn't work out. You found a firm that kind of helped you through all of this. How long did it take you to build the app?
It's been about a two year process.
Okay.
Kind of some fits and starts, and but yeah, it's been a while. And one of the approaches I've used too is using some outside leverage by just kind of letting my kids go unchecked with their chores and screen time, and just letting that fuel my inspiration to build this. A couple examples of that are we took my mother-in-law and my wife out for a Mother's Day brunch. Terrific experience, family experience. But then one of my sons spent half the time, poking around on his phone, and it's just tough. There's a lot of battles. I tell him to put it away and he doesn't put it away. Then, is the whole brunch going to turn into a battle between me and my son about his phone? I mean, it's just heartbreaking. But at the end of that, I think to him, I was like, Tyler, thanks for inspiring, man. You're making this a no-brainer for me to keep going forward with this.
Isn't it amazing how if we just get away from thinking about ourselves all the time, right? Because the ego tries to take over all the time. We stop and just breathe and say, you know what? What is, in your case, what is Tyler trying to teach me? What is he trying to teach me? There's a lesson to be had here. And you look and you say, okay, well, I'm out to brunch. I want him to be focused on the family, not on his screen. We know these kids are addicted to these things just as we are, right? So how do we change that? How do we change that dynamic? So instead of bitching about it, you actually said, wait a minute here. He's trying to teach me something. Maybe I could solve that problem for more families than just my own. So tell us how the app works. If we were to log into it, first of all, before we get to there, when is this app available?
Yeah, so it's going live this summer.
Okay, got it.
Available on the App Store.
Perfect. All right, so this summer it'll be available. So take us through, like when we get on the app, like is it easy to set up? Is it how tough is it to get everything up and running?
Yeah, so that's one of the good things about it, since we're using the Apple Screen Time API. The setup is dramatically easier than you said you used RPact. It's much easier than that. So the way it works is that the kid's phone is locked, meaning that only basic features are available. The phone, the camera, texting, and the Choreo app, of course. And it only becomes unlocked after chores are completed. And then, once unlocked, parents can determine what apps can be accessed and how much screen time they can have, maybe just 2 hours a day. And they can set restricted times. So if you want them to not have their phone while they're sleeping, which I think is a good idea, or maybe during school time, or maybe even during, the Mother's Day brunch, you want, even though they've done their chores, you don't want them to be monkeying around on it during the Mother's Day brunch. And a neat thing about it too is there's 3 responsibility levels. So the lowest level of responsibility or trust is, you need to submit your photo evidence and of completing the chores, and your parent needs to approve those before you get your screen time. That's the lowest level of trust or responsibility. And both of my boys, by the way, are in that camp.
Okay.
And then there's the highest level is, no photo or approval is required. And it really serves more of a reminder. So my daughter, is more in this camp. And she views it as more of a healthy reminder. So just the other week, she's, I have on there do laundry once a week as her chore, one of her chores. And she's like, I totally would have forgot about this if it didn't remind me. So she just kind of clicks it off and does it. But then there's other areas where I might end up flipping her back, because our biggest struggle with her now is with scheduling. She is super social, super busy. She's on the cheer team. She has millions of friends, but she doesn't update the family calendar. And I've asked her a couple times to do it, and then now I'm added it as a low, a high trust chore. But if she doesn't respect that, then I might have to flip it back up to, she'll have to submit photo proof. So it's kind of fun. It has the ability to flip back and forth between those.
Yeah, and adjust as your kids adjust and grow, right? I'm sitting here listening to you talk about for kids and chores, and I'm thinking, like, how many business owners out there would be thinking, like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if I knew that my employees weren't on their phones throughout the day, and be like, you can shut that shit off at a distance and be like, hey, when the job's done, take a picture, send it in, I'll give you some screen time. I know that's a bit extreme, but it would be entertaining to see how we could throttle that at the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's other applications for this, and that's a good example.
What are some others that you've contemplated throughout the creation of this, other segments that could use this technology?
Yeah, well, one way is kind of going deeper into chores. So there's so many good parents out there, and if they adopt Choreo or if they don't adopt Choreo, there's basic chores like making your bed, doing the dishes, doing the laundry, yard work. I really built some templates in here for some more advanced next level chores, or tasks. So some examples of this are like goal setting, spending some time maybe every week to either set goals or check in on your goals. How are you doing on those?
Okay.
Another one is like a social. So one of my sons is not as socially gifted as my other two kids, and it really takes him some urging for him to reach out to a friend, join a club, and you can set that as a chore. Another one is spirituality. Tying, you can tie in like weekly or daily scripture readings, or praying, or practicing your faith in some way. So that's one way it's kind of gone, taking it to the next level of chores and really elevating kids to their full potential.
I love that. There's just so many ways you can integrate this. So basically they do the chore and then they get the reward of the screen time, and you can allot so much per chore. Is that how it works? Like if they took out the garbage, that's 5 minutes. And if they, cleaned up the dinner table, that's 10 minutes. And does it accumulate over time? Or, I imagine the parents can adjust whatever that looks like. Is that correct?
Yeah, they can adjust the way that works. And try to make it very, very simple. So, you complete your chores and then you get your time. So if you haven't done your homework yet, or if you haven't done the laundry yet, then you just don't get your time. So they're really motivated to do that. But there are ways where you can reward time for doing certain things.
That's great for sure. Now I want to swing back to you mentioned earlier about your whys for doing this app. You mentioned that you have a family that you wanted to create it for and to help them, and also to pay homage to your parents and all that they've invested in you.
Sure.
So obviously we worked through about how that impacts you as you're moving through, when you think about those things, and when things get tough, you're like, it doesn't matter, I'm going through this wall no matter what. But when it comes down to, if your parents were alive today, what do you think that they would say about what you've done so far?
Yeah, I think they, they're ultra supportive parents. I mean, I couldn't have asked for better parents. If you ask my mom, she thinks I could be an opera singer. She thinks I could be the president. Just 100% mom. And my dad too is super super supportive. And so I think they'd certainly be proud of me, and especially since I'm kind of adding value to the world, not just looking to get rich or something. Yeah,
for sure. And it'll help families as well.
Yeah.
So can you use this app for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the stats that I was looking at, just about like how much time kids spend on their screen time. It's, I think for teenagers, the average is 7 hours a day. And it just the impact on our family dynamics and other family dynamics. I mean, it just creates so much stress and tension in families. For example, with my son, I give the example of him doing laundry. There's multiple steps to doing the laundry, right? You need to gather your clothes, which oftentimes are all over his room. Actually, get them in the washing machine. Mm-hmm. Then there's a second step, typically an hour later, is put them in the dryer. And the third step, take them out of the dryer, bring them up to your room, fold them, hang them, put them away. But in the past, before Chorio, like each one of those would be a battle, or it could be hours or even days between those steps. And it's just crazy to do that. So being able to, for my mindset, my wife's mindset, being able to have a solution for that. It's like, fine, you don't do it. You just get no phone time, no screen time. But I think it has the potential to help marriages as well. Even in an example like that, speaking with your spouse, your wife, or your husband about it, it's like, so why weren't you tougher on him with that? He didn't do his homework last night. Mm-hmm. He's failing that class. Why weren't you tougher on him? Like, well, why weren't you tougher on him? And I had to do the dishes because no one did the dishes. It's being able to elevate families, beyond these petty, chores and screen time battles, and really, live enriched lives, going to the Mother's Day brunch and enjoying it, and having nice conversations and building memories. So that's one of the things, for our family that has really motivated me too, to get beyond, into those next levels of family building.
I love that. I've been to a couple of restaurants where I saw there's a bucket on the table or a table next to you or something. It says cell phones in here. And if we see everybody put their cell phones in this bucket for dinner, then they get like 10% off their bill. I think that's just such a smart way to do it because you're so right. We've all been to those places. Let's just use a restaurant example where we're walking through a restaurant to sit at our table and you see the kids with their face in a phone and the adults talking, or hell, all of them in faces in the phones, right? And it's like, what are you basically doing? You might as well have ordered in and watched TV at home. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
it's crazy. And my kids it's a good thing they're not listening to this. If you say the average teenager gets 7 hours a day, my kids get 30 minutes. That's all they've ever been able to have is 30 minutes of, and they've got to be really resourceful with that 30 minutes of screen time. And they get to text and all on their friends and they get to, FaceTime or whatever they want to do on that side. That's okay. And there's certain apps we give them a little bit more time to that are, more social or not social media, of course, but that they can interact with their friends at school. It's important, but I don't know how I would do it as a parent and not have some way of throttling that crazy thing they call the internet, because you can go in a lot of directions and not a lot of them are good, right? So especially with the young mind, and it's so important, but also then to tie in to getting things done around the house. And I like where you started talking about how this can impact, relationships within, the husband and wife dynamic, right? Because there are many times where the wife gets home and she's like, well, aren't you supposed to be the one handling this? And why didn't Joey do this? Or, why are the dishes still in the sink? Well, I told him to do it and he didn't do it. And pretty soon you're fighting because of a kid not doing something.
Exactly.
And I'm sitting there thinking like this app solves that problem because Joey is not getting screen time until he actually does the dishes. And when he does the dishes and he gets his little bump, then he can go off and play and do his thing. And then he's like, all right, I need more screen time. So what else can I do around the house? Well, lawn needs to be mowed. Get that done. You get another 20 minutes. And pretty soon you're connecting, instead of giving him money, you're actually getting him screen time. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a cool way to do that and to also help the family dynamic as well, because I can imagine, the wife's going to be a lot happier when all those things are done. And then you don't feel the pressure of constantly having to keep on their ass, especially as teenagers, man. I got two of them. Beautiful kids. I mean, just great kids. We're very blessed. They haven't been a big problem. But, I hear stories and I hear horror stories from families about kids that are, they're stubborn or they just want to be in their way and they don't want to do it. But when you tie screen time into it, there's something about that leverage that makes it different and you can get some chores done. So I'm excited for that, to see how that plays out for you long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I at a high level, I think, technology is amazing. It's an incredible benefits to society.
Yeah.
But too much of a good thing can lose its charm. Even, sunshine is beautiful and awesome to experience. But if you're out there too long, you're going to get a sunburn. You can even scorch your skin. Yep. So I think the same is true for like screen time. And I've done some research into like the negative impacts of it, like the mental health.
No doubt.
The anxiety, the depression, the fear of missing out, the physical health, people, kids being less active, the obesity problem,
yep.
Sleep disruption. I gave the example of my daughter, sleeping with the phone next to her head.
Yep.
And the social too. I mean, if you spend so much time on your phone, it's just more difficult for you to build relationships in person. So it's, that's another major motivator for me, is just, if I can make a slight dent on those problems in the world, it'd just be so fun.
That's awesome. Cool. And I know apps aren't cheap to build, in general. Have you self-funded this? Do you have investors? Like, how have you done that as far as the finance side?
Yeah, it's self-funded or bootstrapped. I'm kind of viewing it as part of my retirement plan. Mm-hmm. And I think it's, just, even if, it's not commercially super successful, which I think has potential to be, it's worth it to me to create the solution, not only because it'll solve the problem for my family, hopefully other families, but it kind of breaks through that barrier that has been holding me back. We talked about like on my deathbed at some point, at least I tried. It's better than saying like, man, I never really pushed it, never really went the extra effort. And then, I kind of look at it too as like, that's at the worst, this would be an investment in, be me building a solution for my family and, me getting through that barrier that's holding me back from getting to the next level of adding value to the world.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned something there about your deathbed, right? That's something that was a huge realization for me when I hired my first coach years and years and years ago. And one of the first exercises he had me do was to sit down. He said, Joshua, it's our first call. It's kind of how it's going to work out. by next week, I want you to sit down and I want you to write your own eulogy. And I was like, wait a minute, dude, like we just met. This is kind of weird. Like eulogy? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like 35 years old. Like, what do you like? I'm not going to die for a long time. Like, why would I need to think about that? He's like, I want you to sit down this weekend and I want you to write your own eulogy. And I'll never forget it. I sat there at my dining room or my kitchen table writing the eulogy on a Saturday morning. My two kids are running around my feet, chasing each other, being crazy kids. And I'm bawling my eyes out, Jeff, just bawling my eyes out, just writing down everything that I wanted. He said, all right, look at it from this perspective. What would you want? You say your sons are standing in front of, the front of the church or wherever it might be. And they're speaking about you, like what your life meant, how impactful it was in their life. Like, what would you want them to be saying? What would you want them to be saying? Not what they will say, but what would you want them to say? And I didn't realize how powerful that exercise was going to be. And it absolutely shaped the way that I started viewing life. And I'm like, so if I want that to be my legacy, if I want people to have that impact from what, the time God gave me here, how do I need to change in order to become that man? Because it's not about showing, just showing up. It's about actually being as well. So that was a huge shift in my soul. And I'm like, wait a minute here. And it didn't happen overnight. It took years to start building that. I'm like, I want to be patient with my kids. I want them to remember me as a patient, loving father. And right now I'm anything but that. I am not patient. I'm so focused on my business. I'm so focused on, I can't imagine how they can even feel love for me because I don't even love me. Right. It was a huge awakening. So to your point about sitting on your deathbed, looking back, if you do that exercise now and start thinking about what would it be like if I'm sitting there, it's my last breath. What am I living with regret in my heart? If there's regret in there, like right now, you're listening to this podcast and you're like, there's things that I wish I would do or want to do in my life and I just haven't yet. And I don't know when I'll get a chance. Do a deep dive. Let's figure out what that's going to be like. Put yourself in your deathbed and what kind of regret are you going to live with in your heart? And Jeff said it perfectly. He's like, look, this app is in my heart to create. Solving this problem is in my heart to create. I don't know what'll happen. At this point, we don't know. Certainty is not real. So we live in an uncertain world. Let's just go for it. Let's just see what happens. And the worst case is you're sitting on that deathbed and you breathe your last breath and you have no regret in your heart whatsoever. You know you did it right. You did it your way. You live life on your terms and you took those chances and you failed and you grew and you were challenged and it hurt, but you did it. And you sit there with a full heart and a full soul saying, you know what? Thank you, God, for this incredible journey. So I love that you just push through it and you're like, look, it doesn't matter if I future pace this and I'm sitting there, I'm going to look back and no matter what happens right now, I'm going to die very happy because I did what I know I should do. Love that.
Yeah, that's, I'm super inspired now. I appreciate you doing that. I feel like going to run a mile or something. That's it's fun to hear you say that, but yeah, it makes me think of, I've heard the saying that, some of the best world changing ideas, for millions of years, if they're all in one place, that's the graveyard, because people never took that step to make the potential and live up to the potential that God has for them, and bring that value forth. And I know it's tough, right? I mean, it's maybe you have a cushy job, and maybe you're spend too much time on watching Netflix series or and that's kind of how I approached Chores. Like, I could spend a couple hours a day watching movies or not doing much, but spend that time doing something that'll build something amazing for the world. Or spend that time. It doesn't have to be entrepreneurial. I mean, you can each category of your life. You could spend more time working on your health, improving your relationships with your family. Or your friends, in positive ways, grow your relationship with God, volunteer, contribute in different ways. So I think that's another thing I would encourage people to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Jeff, I appreciate you coming on the show talking about Choreo. You said it's going to be available this summer. That's awesome. How are people going to be able to find it? You said App Store. Is there a website, or is there anything that they can get into, or some kind of waiting list or something so that they hear it here that it can pop back up when it's ready?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is choreo.app. That's CHOREIO.app. We also have a Facebook and Twitter presence, and then it'll be on the App Store soon.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Jeff, any last thoughts you want to bestow upon our listeners before we wrap it up?
Yeah, just really appreciate you having me on. I love what you're doing with your podcast, Joshua. This is amazing. Yeah, just appreciate the time and the opportunity, and wish everyone a good day.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Jeff. And it's important here in the show. We like to bring people on that are changing the world, that are, even if it's not the entire world at one time, but they look at the world and they see a problem and they say, you know what, I'm going to devote my time. My highest value that I have is my time, not money, right? It's the highest value that can possibly be the highest currency. And I'm going to devote that time to not just solving my problem, but doing it for others as well. And when in human history have we had the opportunity to be able to touch so many people through a phone, through an app, through something like that, as opposed to just doing it within your own family, and take the time to build it for others as well. So Jeff, I have nothing but respect for the time you spent to do this. Your why is solid as hell, and I'm sure that you will not only succeed, but thrive in this environment because you're solving a problem that I know a lot of families struggle with. So Jeff, thank you for coming on, and everyone out there listening, midsummer this is going to be, or summer this is going to be available. Get on that wait list. And when it comes out, you'll be able to get the things done you need around the house. And at the same time, you're going to be able to make sure your kids are engaged with you and you have that control over that crazy screen time that we all as parents have to deal with on a daily basis. So, Jeff, thank you again. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.